And these take us to talk a little more about branding. What is branding? Jeff Bezos, as you know, he's the owner of Amazon, one of the richest people, because of he have know how to manage a brand. And he said, branding, your brand is what other people say about you when you are not in the room. So this is branding. You know, everything we do talks about who we are. Everything we don't do talks about who we are as well. So if we do it in the right way, or if we do it in the not correct way, always will tell something about us as persons, as organizations, and of course, as the church. So when we are talking about the branding system, we are talking about the visual identity of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Some tagline examples of famous brands. This is a well-known brand. It's IBM. IBM, when we talk about IBM, or when we hear about IBM, we always think that this company offers us solutions, right? IBM offers solutions. When we talk about Apple products, iPhones, computers, iPads, we always think different. Is the slogan they have used from many years. Think different. They break the way we manage the technology, the equipment. Remember, they were the first actually to came up with an iPhone, with a phone, with a touch screen. Before Apple, we used to have those phones, those boring phones with little buttons, right? With numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when Apple came up, it changes everything. And since then, almost every company have a smartphone, or almost every single new phone out in the market are different kind of phones, because Apple marked the definition, marked the destiny of what technology was going to be. So yes, when we think about Apple, we think about something different, something really innovative. When we talk about Nike, this brand sports brand, right? They have clothes, they have tennis shoes. So when we talk about Nike, we always think about just do it. They call us to action, right? So what about the Seventh-day Adventist Church? What do you guys think when you see this brand? Or even better, or even more challenging, what do you guys think the people out there think on the Seventh-day Adventist Church when they see the logo, when they see our brand image? This is the very first logo designed back in 1997. You see, before 1997, the Seventh-day Adventist Church never had a logo, an official logo. Some of you guys remember that logo with the 3 angels that many of us were using, thinking that it was an official Seventh-day Adventist Church logo, but it was not. It was something, I don't know who designed it, but many people were using it. It was okay. It was okay, but never was the official logo of the church. So it was until 1997 when the church came up with an idea to design a brand, a visual identity. So it takes, of course, some time to do research, to trying to put everything into one icon, to defining colors. So you guys know the symbolism of all these logo, right? The Bible, it has the cross, it has the globe, it has the 3 angels message, the flame of the Holy Spirit. So it was trying to put all together into one icon is not always easy, right? So this is the official logo from 1997 until 2017. That means that the logo this first logo lasted 20 years. But now we are living in different times. So as any other logo, we needed to do an evolution on the logo, redesign, repurposing the visual identity, the visual image. So that's why 2017, 3 years ago, when the church decided, let's do little changes to the logo. So let's see the little changes they made. I know many of you guys know. I know many of you have implemented well. So I congratulate you because in your local churches, in your websites, in your all over, you are using okay. But for those who doesn't, let me share with you the basic changes that the church made to the logo 3 years ago, 2017. The main change is the font. You may see it there, right? We are living in a very different times that when the logo was designed back in 1997. So now we have less time to read, less time to figure out things. So that's why the church decided to choose a different logo, a different font. In this case, it's this on the bottom, right? The name of the logo is named Advent logo, based on a open source logo from or font by Google, which is open source and it's translated into many languages. So it means that not only is little stronger, little modern, simpler, easier to read, but also it can be translated into many languages. The former logo, the one on the top, doesn't have those accents, for example, in Spanish. So all the time we were needed, if we wanted to write the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Spanish, we needed to draw the accent on a couple letters there. So now the one on the bottom is made out by Google, and it can be translated into more than 100 languages. The symbol on the left, it have minor changes. Maybe you have not realized on those changes, but they are minor changes. One of them is that those little uh, corners or the ends or the flames were a little more point on the last one, and the new one are a little more rounded. Okay, so you barely will see it. The Bible on the bottom, you maybe realize, is little more, the angles on the left is little more like a book, little more squared, a little more angle on the Bible. So it's barely noticeable. And the cross, they were some people saying before that the cross, it seems like it was turning down. So in that case, the horizontal line on the cross have been put little higher than the old one. So those changes, you may barely see them, barely notice, but the main change is the font and the color. The former logo was using with three colors. Now the logo should be in
Different.
just one plain color,
Okay, so you
including the
because they were
Bible, including the flames, including the font, everything in one simple color. And the GC designed it. It's interesting because the GC designed it 3 years ago, not only a new logo, but a complete identity visual system. That means that they said, now in the new system, we're not defining one color for all the word. We will define 7 different colors, and each division will define the colors that sets the best for their territory. In the case of the Inter-American Division, we choose two colors, two main colors, the ones you see on the left. It is that looks little orange, that is named warm, and that in the middle, that is named Ming. Little more formal, right? Like for the buildings, letterheads. The one on the left is a little more for social networks, for stickers, maybe for a t-shirt, something like that, more informal, right? And the one on the right, it's just for Adventist education. schools, education departments. So that one on the right is named denim. It's a blue that it's only for education. So in this case, we have the two main ones for the church, not for education. The orange, the gray, and it, it needs to be in just one simple color like this, not with the three colors that it used to be. Remember, the letter was gold, the flame was, or it gray, the flame was gold, the Bible was green. No, now it's simpler. It's just one simpler color. In this case, it is how it looks on the warm one, or this is how it looks on the mint, a little more gray. Now, new identifiers. Departments, it is important to highlight this. Usually, the different departments, the different ministries of the church always like to create their own identity, their own logo. So the GC came up with this in the new system. Let's define and let's identify just as simple as we can. In this case, let's just identify everything as the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So if we want to create the logo for your own department, your own ministry, you don't need to, because there's already one identity, visual identity design for the church. In this case, you will put Seventh-day Adventist Church and the name of the department and the name of your local church and the name of your conference and the name of your union, the division, or whatever it is. But the main thing is Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, there's the main option, as you see there. But what about when you wanted to use the logo in a different application? When there were no this option, and you wanted to put the main logo on social networks, for example, imagine just trying to put all these little small letters in a little icon on Twitter, on Instagram, or Facebook. So it was too much to like to put in that little icon. Or you wanted to design a sticker, or you wanted to design a baseball cap. So that's the option to use the logo in isolation. It still will communicate about the church, but it will be in a very simple icon, which is this. It is inside of a circle. In this case, it is not going together with the name Seventh-day Adventist Church. This is the only option we have, is the option we have that to use it only when the logo is by itself, is in isolation. So, like a little review of what we have talked here before, it's just this. The ones on the left, you cannot use them anymore, right? The one at the top is isolated and in two colors like it used to be. So it doesn't work anymore. The one on the bottom, is one of the official colors, is the one we use for education, is the one that GC uses for them. But take a look, it's not in a circle, it's in a square. So it doesn't work. It's not part of the identity system. The one on the center looks like it is okay, like the ones on the right, they are the correct isolated options. But the one on the right, you will see, is just the logo inside a circle. The logo, it's little smaller. If you compare that to the one on the right, the logo, the Bible have the corners like a little more stronger, visually stronger, right? Why? Because in design, you want to have different positive and negative spaces. So it's what you will find on the ones on the right, the isolated ones. So the one on the center is not just to put just throw the logo inside a circle. No, it doesn't work. It needs to be the correct file, and you will find those files. I will share with you at the end the link where you may find everything, and you may download and use it as it is. This is a very interesting application. designed by the church as well as part of this visual identity system. It's named the creation grid, right? You divide your space of design. Let's name it the cover of your manual, church manual, the cover of your book, official book of the church, a PowerPoint presentation, maybe, the many different applications. So you want to do something interesting, okay? Design the space that where you are going to design in 7 different columns, and the 7th one represents the Sabbath as the day of rest, right? As the holiday. So in this case, you want to have this 7th column in just blank. You don't want to put anything else but the logo. And notice, we just talk about the logo in isolation, but indeed, in this case, when you're talking with the 7-column grid, it's the only place where the logo goes by itself, not inside that circle. That's interesting, isn't it? But it looks really nice, isn't it? You may see there couple options. There's a guide for small groups. It's very nice, very clean, but the 7 column is just white with the logo and nothing else. You will not see even the name of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in there, because it's already in the 7th column. In the right one, you will see it's like an application for iPads or something. So notice this, in the Inter-American Division was decided that that 7th column will always be only in white or in mint, the colors of the logo. So it looks cleaner, you see. Some other divisions use some colors, they want to put everything there, but the board, the executive committee of the Inter-American Division thought that the 7th column looks nicer if it represents the Sabbath as the day of rest. So they want to have it clean, just simple, and it looks way better like that. Now, let's see how it looks on social networks. We have promoted with all the unions in the Inter-American Division territory to use the warm color in isolated for all the social networks. So basically, we are the only division trying to have one color in our social networks in isolation. If you will go and try to find different conferences, churches from some different parts of the world, you will find out that mostly those who have the isolated logo in the warm, in the orange color, are from the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Inter-America. Maybe some others have used that as well, but this has been something nice, because if you go there, you will find that there are unions, conferences, and we are just one main identity as the Inter-American Division of Seventh-day Adventists. Now, the new stationery, you may see it there. It looks cleaner, much modern than it used to be. It has the 7th column in a gray, in the main color, very simple, very clean, very modern. And the business card, you may want to have maybe the 7th column on the front of your card with your name, with the simpler font, not crazy stuff. And in the back, you want to have just a plain color with the logo in white, or it can be maybe the isolated logo, because you already have the name of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the front. So the two of them are okay. Those work. So there are 2 different options. I know many of you already know about the identity. Actually, it's not something new. It's kind of old now, because have been 3 years, right? Well, not too old, but is what I'm just saying, that just to highlight that it is not something new. It's just something you already know. But sometimes we need to be remembered on this and go and see how we are using the logo. Even here in the Inter-American Division, I realized that sometimes some departments, some ministries inside the building, the headquarters, or official events, sometimes they do, they are, they think it's easy just to go to the print shop and ask the guy, hey, just put the logo inside a circle or change the color, it looks better, you know. So even though we continue our trying to update the ministry, sometimes they forgot or someone they don't know how to do it. At least that happened at the beginning of these from 2017 when the logo came up. Now it seems like little by little they are more educated into this. So that's why I want to just highlight this in this last part of the presentation. Four different case studies, very simple ones. Number one is personalizing the logo. Now this is a well-known logo all over the place. You know, McDonald's, right? This is a restaurant. It's all over, and in the Caribbean, in US, in mostly you guys are in US territory. So, well, but even though you go to Mexico, Central America, but imagine you're going to, let's say, China, and you don't know how to eat or what to eat because everything is in Chinese language. You don't understand. And then you will find a McDonald's and you see at least it's something, it's in English. I will understand something. Or you go to Mexico, right? It's in Spanish. It's so spicy, the food all over the place, and you don't know what they eat, how to eat. And you find, oh, there's a McDonald's there. But you see something interesting on that McDonald's. It's a restaurant that the difference on the McDonald's in Mexico from the ones here in North Caribbean, you see that they have a hot, some tacos, some you will see tacos in McDonald's. You will, I'm pretty sure you're not trusting on that McDonald's. Why? Because it looks like the fake McDonald's. It's not the official one. The official one is just one simple M, isn't it? Well, what about if we think the same way as the one who designed this logo, putting this the hat, the tacos? What about if you want to try to put something from your own territory to the logo of the church? That happens a lot. You know, they change the font, they put some palm trees, they put some mountains, the moon, the photo of the church, of something else, right? So let me tell you that this is not allowed. This is like the fake logo of the church. I always explain something that the church have more branches globe globe wide than McDonald's and Subway restaurants all together. If we uh, if we put all together the restaurants of McDonald's and Subway, they have less restaurants than we have Seventh-day Adventist churches. But the question is why we don't know, or why the people out there don't know much the church because of this. Because many people change the logo, try to adapt it, try to add something, the mountains, they change the color. So we are not doing the things as it must be because we are changing, and then the brand doesn't come out that strong as it needs to be. Case study number two, new ministry logo. Basically the same thing, right? The other one, you want to adapt it. Now you want to design a new logo for your ministry, a new logo for your church. And this is a question many people have asked me from many years. What about if I design my new logo for my ministry? Maybe a radio program, maybe a Pathfinder club, or maybe some other ministries that we want to do here at the church. Let's talk about bicycle club or whatever. So they said, in order for the people to know that this is part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I want to use some part of the logo, just the flames or just something. No, same thing. It doesn't work. You need to, if you think it's really necessary to have a different logo, not the church logo, okay, go ahead and design your own, but put together the logo of the church, not break it apart and put it together. Case study number three. We don't have much time, but if I ask you guys which one of the logo here are the right one, because if you see, all of them have the official font. All of them have the official color, but which one of them is wrong or which one of them is correct? Okay, if we were in a meeting all together, I will ask you guys to raise up your hand to tell me, but now we are online. So let me tell you, none of these are okay. Why? The one on the top left, it seems it's very close, but instead of having the logo by itself, it's the isolated. So remember, the isolated logo never goes together with the Seventh-day Adventist Church name. That's why it's named isolated, because it goes in isolation. The one on the right, it has the name of a local church, not the name of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And actually, when we are talking about identity, we not always talk only about visual identity, but verbal identity. So the name of the Seventh-day Adventist Church is complete as is, Seventh-day Adventist Church, not SDA. So that one on the right, it's incorrect. The one on the right bottom, the logo is on the right. It's close to the correct one, but it's everything on the right, so it's not correct. It needs to be on the left, like it is the one on the left on the bottom. It's almost correct, that one, but same thing. We are highlighting the Inter-American Division General Conference, so if there's someone out there, they will never know that it's the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So remember, it needs to be, instead of saying Inter-American Division, it needs to be Seventh-day Adventist Church, and in the bottom part, it needs to be General Conference or Inter-American Division General Conference, something like that, right? So none of them are correct, and that's important to highlight. Last case study. Last week, I was talking with the leaders of the church in the CELT conference. Maybe some of you were there. I don't know. But I was saying, today, we are living very special times. We are in the middle of this pandemic situation, this COVID situation. And I was saying, it seems like we are living in two different worlds. The physical world, so I represent that with that door on the left, and the virtual world, the one on the right. And I was saying to the leaders, you know what? We have spent a lot of money trying to paint our physical churches, to have it nice, to have a nice landscape, but we barely have entered the virtual reality. Now our temples are closed, our church buildings are closed, and now we are entering into a new world, the virtual world, the internet world, the social network world. And we in the past have not invested too much on that. So now this fourth and last case study is just go and see your physical church. Go in front of your church and see, do I have the correct logo? Do I have the correct colors of them? And I'll go to the virtual world and think the same thing. Do I have the correct logo on my website, on my social networks, on the different applications I'm doing online? So this is the case study for you to do. It's like the tests by the end of the class. Remember, I'm a professor, so I like to have tests. So this is a challenge for you. Now, just to finish, I am just sharing the website where you may find everything, identity.adventist.org. You will find there a section that you will download the PDF for the Inter-American Division. Remember, every single division have their own colors defined. In this case, the Inter-American Division have their own colors. So you will find there in the official Global Identity website, you will find the Inter-American Division segment. And also you go to interamerica.org, which is the official website of the Inter-American Division. You will find in resources, in the section of resources, you will find a short video where I explain all these in 7 minutes. You will find the files where you may download it. So we hope the next time we are going to the North Caribbean, we will find out that the church logo is well designed, is well used. So may the Lord continue blessing you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Marquez, and thanks for the quiz as well too.
Yes.
Okay, so at this time we have a few minutes for anyone who has any question for Professor Marquez. Any questions? Okay, I guess that would have to depend on the host in terms if anyone has a raised hand, or I don't know if anyone submitted any questions.
Yeah, Pastor Edwards, I'm not seeing any questions coming from my end here. I don't know if anyone has a question, they can type it. There's a question here. Do we still use the abbreviation SDA? That's a question for you, Ella. Do we still use the abbreviation SDA?
Yes, thank you for the question. We have never used the SDA as an official part of the global identity. We like to simplify, right? Sometimes, and we just say SDA, it's simpler. So when we're talking as friends, we say SDA, that's fine. But when we are trying to put this in front of our church, in a t-shirt or in our business card, we will never be identified as SDA. Our official name is Seventh-day Adventist Church.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
Any other question? I do have a question, Professor
Yes,
Abel.
Yes.
If we go to the website you just gave us, we will find all the identifiers.
Okay.
And I guess what we need to do now is to just include the local congregation. But if I want to bring in North Caribbean Conference, how do I put it so that I can send that to the local church? What do I do?
If you want to identify the conference as is,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah, same thing as the last one I share with you is it needs to be the icon on the left, and then Seventh-day Adventist Church, and then the little letters will be North Caribbean Conference. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Someone said the question, the use of clip chart with the logo. Any suggestions such as making posters and promos?
Yes. It's something important here to highlight. Many people think that seventh column we talk about, the creation grid, it's just to use it all over the place. And even some people have asked me, for example, why the Inter-American Division is not using the creation grid in every single picture, in every single graphic on Instagram, for example, on the official Instagram of the Inter-American Division. Because it is not something that we need to do it always and all over. It's just an option. So one of the best options to use the creation grid is precisely posters, book cover designs, CD designs, maybe PowerPoint work well as well. So it's not to use it all over the place. If you want to use it, it's like a simple resource that sometimes you don't want to, you are trying to do something really official and you are breaking your head trying to figure out what to put on that design. So use that resource. Just use the seventh column, that's fine. It will look nice. It's a very simple option, but it's not to use it all over the place. So as an answer, yes, I will say if you want to do a poster, you want to use maybe the creation grid, but it's an option. It's not to use it all over the place.
Okay. Okay, any other question? I guess that will be our final question. Any other questions?
One in the chat box, so you, Pastor Edwards.
Yes. Okay, someone indicated, says, I was a little late and I don't know if it was covered, but I've noticed that when using the logo in video, it's somewhat difficult to use it in smaller sizes. So do you have any recommendations to make it more visible? That is when it is used in video presentations. Right,
good question. Sometimes we want to have the logo, for example, in the little subtitles, right? Behind our name in front of us. character generator, right? The CG. And yeah, that it's ideal to use. It's ideal to use the isolated logo. It's a good example. You want to have it here, like the little circle here, and it will work really, really good. So even in small videos for the internet, it's something we use most of the time. So yes, the isolated logo will work for stickers, for a little pen. You want to put the logo in a pen or in a little pin. It would be too much if you want to put like Seventh-day Adventist Church, all the thing here, right? We have a sticker right here in my computer. I have a sticker like this size. There's other ones that we have sent to print little smaller. Sadly, I don't have here at home a little buttons that you may wear on your jacket, but it's just the circle one. It's not the whole thing, not the seventh column, of course. It's just the isolated logo. So as a summary, you see, we have at least three main options, I will say. The logo, complete logo, Seventh-day Adventist Church, a little formal for the in front of the church building and all that stuff. Second option, the isolated for videos, for social networks, for little buttons, for stickers and all that. And third option, the seventh column, the creation grid, to design your posters, PowerPoint files, and all that stuff.
Okay. I think if there are no, if there are more questions, there's a hand raised. Okay.
From Dr. Peters, Dr. Henry Peters.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Peters.
Mr. Peters will ask the question.
Okay, I'll ask the question. Okay. For the letterheads, when you talk about the column, put in the logo, is it vertical or horizontal?
Good question. It's always vertical. It's always vertical. It's like this. Let me share it to you very quickly here. Let's go to the presentation once again, and let me go back. You will find it here. You're talking about the letterhead, right? There you go. Here, there you go. Can you see it there? It's you see the letterhead here on the right. You see the column. It's on the right side. So yeah, divide the area in 7 equal parts. And something important, you know, I have seen some even at the headquarter building. Someone made a big banner, say, "Welcome to the Inter-American Division." I don't even know who did that. It's nice. It looks good. It's on one of the rooms there. Maybe you have come and see it. I think it's not there anymore. But it was a big, huge banner. It has the official color, the official font. But when you count the proportion on that column, it seems like it was like 12 feet. You may fit even 12 more columns in the middle. So it doesn't make sense. It needs to be proportioned. You divide the area in 7 parts, and the 7th one will be the vertical column with the identity of the church. So it's just something also to take care. It's vertical, and it's always the 7th part of the whole area.
Okay, another question, Professor Marquez, was, is it permissible to write our name on the logo on a business card?
Yeah, we may see there's the option of my business card. Let me put it larger here for you guys to have a better look of it. You see there's my name with even with the same font, but the logo stands by itself in the top left. It needs to be Seventh-day Adventist Church, Inter-American Division, and the logo is on the icon is on the creation grid, and my name is there, of course, but it's not part of the logo. You cannot merge the two things. So I cannot put my name together with the icon. It's a complete different thing. My name is there just to identify myself, but it stands by itself in the business card.
So I guess the logo cannot be used like as a background, like as a watermark upon which your or the rest of the business card is written.
Well, this is the one you see there. is the one, the official one.
Okay.
The official option provided by GC. In this case, there's no space for watermark because you already have it present there. You don't need to add an additional watermark because the logo is really present there, and the name Seventh-day Adventist Church, it's there. And in the bottom, in the back of the card, you remember, you also have, let me share with you here, in the back of the card is not a watermark, is really a full color, the name of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the logo in the back. So it doesn't make sense to have it on as a watermark.
Oh, okay. So if there are no other questions, I guess I can turn back over to Master Host, Pastor Filbert.
Yes, Pastor Edwards, let me say thanks to Professor Abel for being here with us this morning. We're really delighted for your expertise. We think it's great for as a church for us to follow the identity standards of the church, and we are better informed. We will try to be sure that all of our social media platforms, or websites, or business cards, letterheads are in compliance with organization policies and principles. So we want to thank you so much for being here with us. And we are delighted that you can take your second Sunday off doing things like these. And we are happy for your presence. We give you the opportunity to say goodbye to us. And we trust that God will bless you in your ministry. Take a minute and say hello to all of us. We have about 72, 73 of us online at the present moment. And you have the opportunity to say goodbye before you leave.
Thank you so much for the invitation again, Pastor Royston Filbert. It is my pleasure always to see the vision you have on communication and the vision to have this special event during these special times we're living in. Definitely, it's really important to have a communication webinar, communication training for all the church in the North Caribbean. So thank you so much. Looking forward to see you guys soon, physically, not only virtually. May the Lord continue blessing you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brother April. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, it seems to me that my audio is a little low and we are working hard and trying to get it fixed. But at this time, I'm going to turn over to Pastor Jerry Lando. Are you there, Pastor Lando?
Yes, Pastor Filbert, I'm
beautiful.
Right there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can we see you?
Can you see me now?
All right. So, Pastor Lando, you go ahead and introduce our next speaker.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's my delight to introduce to us our next speaker. His name is Mr. Nigel Cook. He's the Communication, Public Affairs, and Religious Liberty Director of the Jamaica Union Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. After 18 years of work in the public and private sector, Nigel Cook was elected to serve a 5-year term as the Communication Director of the West Indies Union Conference of Seventh-day Adventists in November 2005. Prior to his call to full-time service to the church, Mr. Cook spent 15 years in the financial sector from 1990 to 2005, gaining much valuable experience in the Jamaican and other capital markets, working at Island Life Merchant Bank, Barita Investment Limited, and First Caribbean International Securities Limited. He was re-elected in 2010 to serve another 5-year term in the new Jamaica Union Conference, with added portfolio responsibility of Director of Public Affairs and Religious Liberty. Elected to a 3rd term in 2015, Mr. Cook had made a significant contribution to the positive image and repositioning of Adventist Church in Jamaica over the past 14+ years. He's a member of the Union Executive Committee Board and serves as a member of its Finance and Investment Committees. He carries the responsibility of being the official media spokesperson for the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Jamaica and oversees the union's media programs aired on radio and television. He is a director of the NCU Media Group and currently serves as chairman of the National Religious Media Commission. He holds membership in the Press Association of Jamaica and the Society of Adventist Communicators in North America, and is the current Secretary General of the National Religious Liberty Association. He is married to Bobette, I hope I pronounced his wife's name correct, for the past 22 years, and they are the parents of two sons, Chad Anthony and Ramoy. Both are students at the Northern Caribbean University. We are glad to have him with us this morning, and we want to encourage and welcome him to this program. We now turn over the time to him.
Thank you very much, sir, for your introduction. Thank you, Pastor Philbert, for this invitation to join you. I'm just trying to get this thing up now. Are you seeing it? No? Yes? Can someone help me? Are you seeing the PowerPoint?
Give him the ability to share his screen.
No.
We're seeing you.
No, we're seeing you, not your shared screen.
All right. You should be seeing it now.
Yes, we are.
But you need to see it bigger. So let me give it to you in a larger way. That's fine?
Wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I need to minimize this. Yes, so the pleasure is mine to speak to you regarding, and I welcome all those who are participating online. I have this passion for media relations. A past GC communication director once told a meeting we had here in Jamaica, he said, if the communication person is not building a relationship with the media, he should not collect his pay. Very strong message there. I'm sure you won't agree with him, Ronston. But he was just trying to emphasize the importance of it, because it is very important that the church develops a relationship with the media. So I've always started with this quote from Ellen G. White. I start with it always because there are still members of our church that believe that we should not be in the media. The whole issue of call out of the world and not letting your writer know what you left and do and things like that. People still have misunderstandings with these. So Ellen White says we must take every justifiable means of bringing light before the people. She said, let the press be utilized and let every advertising agency be employed that will call attention to the work. This here is saying call attention to it, to say that we should not be boasting, but to call attention to it. John D. Rockefeller once says, next to doing the right thing, the most important thing is to let people know you're doing the right thing. And that relates to the church. We do so much right things, so many things that we do, yet we are not showcasing it, and yet our publics are not aware of it. So a great concept is just the first step. Good PR. The good PR professional know how to share the positive actions of their organization, garnering goodwill and headlines. I must say to you all that it was one of the first step that allowed me to go into the media. What had happened is that I recognized that the media will only carry bad news. So I remember once I saw a headline in one of our newspaper, Adventist deacon charged for child abuse. And I called the editor and I say to him, okay, so each time you do this, you're going to describe the church that the person is from. So you're going to say Catholic deacon, Methodist deacon or elder or pastor. It was very unfair. And what I recognize is that when it comes to Seventh-day Adventist, we are held at a higher standard than even the other churches. Why? Because we are commandment-keeping people. And hence, the media at times seem unfair. They want to go and dig up all the bad things, and whenever the bad things come, they will highlight it. So my plan that I had then was this. I will fill the media with as much good news as possible so that when the bad one comes, it will dilute in the good ones. So I took the approach to do that. Malcolm X once says the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that's power. So a lot of times, even you'll find with cases, you'll find that the media sometimes tries the cases in public and people draw their conclusion while the case is still in court, because the media has a way of doing this. So what is media relations? Media relations is coordinating relationship with the online, print, and electronic media with the goal of getting favorable news coverage for an organization, and in this respect, our church. It involves working with the various media for the purpose of informing the public of an organization's mission, policies, and practices in a positive, consistent, and credible manner. So media relations, the objective or the goal is to maximize positive coverage in the mass media without paying for it directly through advertising. So when you send your press release to the media, they publish it, it is free. One of the things that persons believe that it's a myth. They believe that the press is not in need of news or the church, just as though we are in need of them. So I give you an example. If any print media or any electronic media tries to bring a newscast, and the newscast only would have advertising, it's no newscast at all. So I'm here to say to each one of you that the media needs us just as much as we need them. What's the benefit of this? It allows access to both large and small target audiences and help build public support and mobilizes positive public opinion for an organization. So why media relations? To convey the most effective impression of an organization. That is to attract positive publicity. All our publics, external and internal, members all, get news from the mainstream media. So yes, we will do internal communication, we'll do our magazines, we'll do our newsletters, but a sure way of ensuring that all your members, all your publics get information, good positive information on the church is through the mainstream media. So why do we need to attract publicity? Publicity is regarded as more credible than advertising. A good PR story is infinitely more effective than a front page ad, said Richard Branson. Sure, you know who he is. Because advertising basically is bragging by the organization. That's how it is seen. So there's no way you're gonna put out an ad and it is something negative. It will always be something positive. However, people instinctively trust authoritative content from the public, the media, than in advertising. So whether it's a piece in a publication or through word of mouth, make sure you're producing stories than doing ads. One of the biggest benefits from the media is that the media endorses the story or the information of your organization, which is referred to as third-party endorsement. I remember some years ago, we were promoting a program in our church, national program. We promoting it, no one would budge. The day it came in the media, the church went abuzz about it because they feel that with the media carrying the information, it is substantial enough. They feel good enough about it. They feel it is public acknowledgement. And yes, it was motivating. But we have some situations when we relate to the media. One such is distrust, bordering on an adversarial relationship. So you find at times the church don't trust the media and the media don't trust the church. The media at times feel that the church is hiding something. The church feels that the media want to expose something bad. And hence there's a conflict there at times because one is afraid of the other and the other is saying no because they're going to do this. So that's a current situation. Another, religion is viewed with cynicism and repulsion by the newsroom. Oh, what is religion? Religion has caused the most war in the world. They are just conflicting. This one is worshiping on this day. This one is on that day. What is the conflict there? This one believes this. This one don't believe this. We have different beliefs. And so religion by the media is viewed in that light. Another current situation is that there's a seeming disinterest of media in covering these religious things. They don't think it is nice enough, news enough, appealing enough to sell their newspaper or to get people glued to the television or radio. So that's how it is viewed. The church's limited understanding of the culture and operation of the media poses a challenge also. And I will go soon enough to some slides to show why. So when we don't understand the media, it poses a challenge. We don't understand what they're looking for. We don't understand their downtime. We don't understand how they will report things of the church. All of that will cause challenges as we interface with the media. There's also a lack of emphasis placed on effective communication by the church. There are some churches that just believe, as I said before, we should not be in mainstream media. It is not for us. It's for politicians, it's for companies, it's for everyone else except the church. Our place is in the four walls of a building, and that's where we ought to stay. We ought to be worshiping God there. There's no need to be exposing anything that we do, even if it is so good, so that the media will have it. So the church is to be blamed on that side too. They believe there's no need for it. There's also a controversial approach to reporting adopted by the media entities. So they'll sometimes take a good story and they will just dissect the whole information and put a bad image out on the church. So let's look at the needs analysis. So there's need for recognition and value. Yes, of church news, of what we stand for, which is then, yes, we are the moral voice of any nation. And so we need to be recognized as such by the media. We need to dialogue on national issues. So if there are challenges with government, corruption, and things like that, the church needs to have a voice in it because, yes, we are the moral authority of all the nation. Yes, the church is. We need to have access and equity. We need to have equal access to the media as anyone else. And I just before explained the challenges sometimes with that. It's not necessarily on the media side, but on our side. We need to access our community news bulletin and get media houses to try and see if they can do something for the church by having this little corner, if it is a print media or if it is electronic, yes, a little space to have community bulletin, news bulletin. So the task that we have to examine the needs of the church and devise strategies for more effective engagement by the print and electronic media within the context of a reciprocally respectful relationship. We must also develop a media relations policy. This is necessary because not everyone in the organization can speak to the media. And that involves when a crisis occurs. You can't have the normal member just going in front of a mic. And because, yes, he's the elder or she is the deaconess, she believes she has a right to speak to the media. We have to be selective as to how that happens, who will speak, when they speak, and how they speak. Must be someone with knowledge of the church and its mission and its doctrine and its beliefs, so that quotations are not made which will damage the image of the church. Because communication, we are there to build the best positive image of the church to all our publics. Our theme, building bridges of hope. And I tweet that a lot of times by saying, we build bridges, not walls. So we need to foster trust between the church and the media. So our intent and our aim is strengthen positive relationship between the church and the media, help change the perception of news coming from the community of faith, and detail a program for church news and the coverage of news-related items. So what do you believe the media needs? Years ago, our university, when I just came here, they basically wanted to have a media luncheon. I said to the then president, Dr. Thompson, I said, what the media needs is news, not food. You see, one of the things you have to look at with that, and I just chipped this in here, it's not in the presentation, because I learned this. I have a media mentor, someone who's the editor and still the editor of a newspaper. So at times I relate to him and he guides me with issues. And if there are complex issues, I call him and we look at it before I get the church involved. So he would say to me, if you just out of the blue call the media to a luncheon, they're going to get skeptic. They're going to say, okay, seems as if there's some bad news to come out and they're trying to get us on their side so that we either don't publish the news or we treat it lightly and nicely so that the church will look good. And two, when you do that too, they believe and they can, when you do that, send someone privately on your campus, in your office, calling your operator just to check if something is wrong because you're invited to a luncheon or even a Christmas media event. I am here to say I've never done anything like that in all my years of dealing with the media. I'm relating to the media from 1998. Before I came to the union, I was doing media relations from I was at the local church. One, I've never invited any of them to lunch. Never have had a media luncheon for all of them. Never given them money to publish anything from the church. What I do each year when it comes to December is give each of them, the editors, etc., a package with our devotional for the following year. And if I'm to add a drink to it, we have a slew of non-alcoholic wines from the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I'll probably put one in it. But I give them Christian material. I say all of this, it's not in it. You realize I'm stuck still at one. What the media needs is news, not food, not to be bribed, not to be coerced, not to be forced. News. If they get good news, that's what they want. That's what they exist for. So media need coverage of church services, events, program. You send them a press advisory when you want them to cover an event. A press release is when you send them news from the church, what had happened or what is to happen. But when you want them to come and cover, you send what is called a press advisory. The media also want advertising. As much as they will carry news, they want one day you can say we have an ad to put in the paper. There are times that we have to put an ad out. It might be for a program, fine with that. So the media needs crisis communication too. Because whenever there's a challenge or a problem or some issue with the church, they want to get the news. And so it's one of the needs. They want to call you in the crisis. They want to publish. They want to make that news. And hence we have to be on the alert, very prepared, even with that number 4. Warren Buffett once says, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. Yes, media relation is so important because a lot of times it is when the news, the bad news reach the media, it becomes a real crisis. So what are the media strategies? Identify appropriate media contacts. So appropriate media contacts here, I basically relate to editors. The reason why is that editors are the ones that say what they need. In other words, you have a journalist that will cover the story. He or she might submit the news, might leave it, but it's the editor who edits it and decide whether that story is published or not. So I don't relate to the journalist per se who does coverage. It's the editor that I'll send the things to so that they will decide whether it goes on the front page or the back page or any at all. We need to track media contacts and the publications that they do. So you might find a newspaper, like on a Sunday, we have in the newspaper Outlook magazine that deals with feature stories. So you find out who the editor is. If you have the feature on a couple in your church celebrating 50 years, if you have someone living for over 100 years or 100 years. So you find that editor because you have different editors for various segments of the newspaper or even for news. You have the news editor, but you would have different editorial editors for various segments of the news media. The best thing is to make direct contact. Don't just send it like that. Know who the person is, get their direct number, and build that relationship. Whatever you do, keep it plain and simple. They don't like complicated issues. They don't like to be asking you questions, trying to understand you when you are the one who's trying to get the best thing out for the church. So keep it plain, keep it simple. You can use online distribution too. A number of them are available here, PR News Y and PR Web. So how do we understand what the media is, how people in the press work? We need to get their cycle. We need to know their coverage, and we need their style and type. So we need to learn and understand the work cycle of local media, including their downtimes. In Jamaica, a lot of times we get news in the media for Sunday night and Monday. Why Sunday is normally a slow period. So you capitalize on that. On Sundays, they need news. Sometimes Saturdays too, but yes, we're at church. But when you go into the start of the week, the Monday, and all the news there, they're getting all the accident, the crime, the politician, everyone is there bombarding them with news. They will squeeze your news out. So the competition is there. But like on a Sunday, I call the editor now, I'll send 2 stories, and they say, okay, and they'll tell you thanks. Because guess what? They need something to fill up the paper or to fill for the news time. So that's the downtime. There's another downtime. Another downtime is don't call them when it's close to the news time. So if you have 7 o'clock main news on television, you can't call them 5. They're preparing the news at that time for that time. You'd have to call them like maybe 2, 3 earlier, maybe 4 the latest, but they cut off there. So in order to get the news, and it goes for radio too, in order to get it in, you have to make sure you get them on their downtime per se. It's not really not down, it's a time when they're free so that they can relate to you and do what is necessary. So familiarize yourself with the news coverage of the targeted publication. I mentioned that before. You watch TV, you listen radio, read news. So look at their style and the type of news they carry and how the church can fit in here. So I mentioned before, they carry anniversary stories for other people. So you find people in your church that fits there. They carry a news story about even persons. We talk these days about the persons who are in need, the less fortunate, the so forth. Study them, and then look at what you have as a church that can positively impact others in the society or the community. So these opportunities are available in the media. When we have election of officers, new officers. So if you have a session, you have a new president, secretary, treasurer, directors. Yes, that's what elections mean. You can always let the country knows who your new leader is. The media sometimes needs to know that. They need who to communicate with. You can then even do a feature story on your new president in the paper. So election is always good. For promotion, yes, you have an event coming up, you promote it in there. Health. Oh, wow. I told my health director last year at our year-end meeting that he has the most powerful department in the church. And he laughed and he said, no, I mean, personnel ministry, there's Sabbath school there. And I said, no. The health ministry department is the most powerful in the church. So he says, well, why? I said to him at the time, look, without any health, you cannot do anything else. Then you can use health. Everybody wants to be healthy, the rich, the poor, race, it cuts across all boundaries, all barriers. So with COVID, recently I called him again and said, you remember I asked you which is the most powerful department in the church? And I told you health. Are you seeing it now? COVID can easily or has easily shut down the world. It is an entering wedge for our message. And so when we get health information in the media and to show that we are the authority on health, people will come to the church. I am a testimony of it. I can tell you, it is the health message that pulled me to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So when I'm speaking like this, please understand why I have to sound this way. Because at the time I said, well, how quick can the church have all this good news and the public out there is not aware of it? We need, this is one area that we need. Right, letter to the editor telling them which is the best health practice and things. Just this is an enormous area for the church to be in the media on this health. Education, our education system, and how we interface the whole health, not health, education, and the holistic way in which we present the message, right? Evangelism and education, they are one. So we need to let the public know what we offer in our school. Welfare and outreach, that's easy. When we have disasters, and Philibert can relate to that, they want those kind of news, what happens. Religious liberty, yes. If our members' rights are infringed, we need to let the public know and know what is right and what we stand for. Human interest story, as I mentioned, children, the elderly. The media is very soft, very vulnerable people these are in the society. They're very young, they're very old. The media will carry story for them. Oh, yeah, that's religious liberty. And that was on the front page of a newspaper because they will carry news. So how do we relate to the media? We need to know what our role is. Our role is to provide the best possible news to make the church look good. So the best possible news to all our publics. That's the role. A reporter is always a reporter. He wants to report what he believes is best, but we are the church. We are representing our organization. We need to know what we give to them, and we must give to them the best news. We need to treat journalists and editors professionally. Don't get too comfortable with them. There are journalists and there are editors, and they don't change. If you believe you are so friendly with them, they will trap you. They will embarrass you. Don't get too comfortable and tell them any secret that is in the church. So if an elder has fallen and whatever, and they're trying to get it out, you don't give them this thing for the church to look bad. Treat them with professionalism. They're always skeptical, bear that in mind. So this person, Brendan Beham, says, there's no such thing as bad publicity except your own obituary. So this is saying, and this is something leading up to crisis communication. Use every opportunity to make the church look good. So even if it's a bad thing, use it to the benefit of the church. I think this is the second to last slide, or the last. In the long history of humankind, those who learn to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. So says Charles Darwin. So we're all in this thing together. We have different strengths. We need to bring them to the table. We need to collaborate with colleagues. We need to present the best result we need to present the church in the best light to all its public. So, are you ready to improve media relations? That's it.
Thank you so much, Nigel. Quite a mouthful, and we have lots of questions. Are you hearing me clearly, Nigel?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Right. We have a lot of questions, but here's what. Our next presenter has a time-sensitive appointment. I don't know if it's possible for us to defer the questions for the next presentation so that I can allow the next presenter to come in before we take the question. Is that possible?
I guess it's fine with me. Remember, I have another presentation, so I'm here with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Pastor Lando?
Yes, Pastor Philbert, thank you very much, Mr. Cook, for your informative presentation, which you were blessed by it. We trust that God will continue to bless you as you serve the church in the capacity that you are now being called for. Again, as Pastor Philbert said, we'll defer the question to the next presentation. And I now turn it back to Pastor Philbert.
Okay. I'm going to turn over to Pastor Lato. And folk, we wanted to send your questions. We have a time-sensitive appointment, and so we're trying to catch our next presenter before she gets going. So it's the reason we are trying to make an adjustment. And so we thank you. I see all the hands in the chat box and a number of people. Let me say welcome to all of you from all around the Caribbean here. Please send in your questions. But at this time, I'm going to switch over to Pastor Lato, who is going to handle the next segment as we welcome our next presenter. Pastor Lato.
Yes, thank you, Pastor Philbert. As we navigate the new digital space, we need to be careful as to how we make our entrance and adequately navigate this space. And so up for us right now will be we'll be learning about the church and copyrights. We've got a treat for you. Mrs. Jennifer Gray Woods comes to us from the General Council of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. Jennifer Gray Woods received her BS in biology from Oakwood College in 2002, her JD from Harvard University in 2005, her MPH from Johns Hopkins in 2007. She is a member of the Illinois and California bars and the American Bar Association. She is also a registered patent attorney and is admitted to practice before the United States Supreme Court. She joined the Office of General Counsel in October 2015 as an Associate General Counsel, where she focuses on the areas of trademark, copyright, and data privacy. Before joining the Office of General Counsel, she worked in Washington, D.C. at the United States Department of Veterans Affairs Office and of General Counsel, where her focus was legal issues concerning health operations and health administration. Previously, she worked in Los Angeles, California, at a law firm specializing in healthcare law, and in Birmingham, Alabama, where she clerked for the Honorable U.W. Clemon in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Alabama. Right now, we're going to learn a lot. She has a lot. I believe that she has a lot to say, and we have a lot to learn. So right now, we give it over to you, Mrs. Woods.
Thank you. And hopefully you can all hear me. If you can't, just let me know. I should be having good connection here. I'm going to try to share my screen at this time, and let me know if you can see that. Is the
Yes, we can. It's clear.
Yes, we can. It's
okay,
clear.
good. So we have I have a lot to cover, and unfortunately, I do have a time commitment. Another commitment coming up. And so I want to make sure that I get through the presentation, and then also that I have time for questions, because there are always questions during this presentation. So I'm going to spend maybe about 15 or 20 minutes going over copyright basics, and then I'll take any questions that you have. So my disclaimer that I always give is that this is not legal advice. I am not acting as your attorney right now. I'm just giving you principles based on the law, and this is primarily based on US law. But if you do have specific questions, reach out to your counsel, or you can send me an email and I can give you guidance as necessary as well. So let's talk about copyrights. A copyright is a set of rights that are given to creators of work, of original works that are fixed in a tangible form of expression. And in US law, and this is true in many, many, many countries, most countries in fact, the following things can be copyrighted. Literary works such as books or magazine articles, or even computer programs or software, that is considered literary work and it can be copyright protected. Also musical works, this includes both the sound recording and the lyrics and the music. Dramatic works, choreographs, pictures and photos and sculptures, motion pictures, and even architectural works. So if you see any famous buildings or famous architectural structures, those can have copyright protection to them. And what a copyright entails is that it allows the owner or the creator of that work to have the exclusive right to make copies of the work, to distribute their work, to publicly perform their work, to display their work, and to make derivatives of their work. And what I mean by making derivatives is, let's say that I wrote a very famous book and someone wants to turn that book into a movie. Well, only I have the right to turn the book into a movie. That's a derivative. Or if I write a book in English and someone wants to translate it into Spanish, that translation would be considered a derivative. And only I, as the creator of the work, as the copyright holder, would have that right. So how do you get a copyright once you create a work? Well, under US law, and again, under most laws, about 170 countries have similar laws to this. A copyright is obtained automatically. Once you write that book or create that song or perform your choreographed piece, then copyright attaches to it and you have certain rights that go along with that. There used to be a time that people had to register their copyrighted work, and you would see this little C, the C with the circle around it, that symbol, and that would show that they've copyrighted their work, but that's no longer required. You don't have to submit a work to the Copyright Office anymore in order to have a valid copyright. That used to be the case prior to about 1978. Although it's not required, though, there are still some benefits to copyrighting your work, which I can talk about at a later time. So who owns the copyright? As I've stated in the beginning, it's usually the author or the creator of the work, but the author can assign someone else their rights, their copyright, because copyright is a form of intellectual property. So just as I could give you real property and assign that to someone else, I could also assign my intellectual property rights to someone else. Also, there is this concept that is known as work for hire. And under this concept, it says that if an employee is creating a work on behalf of their employer, then the employer is considered the copyright holder, not the employee. So when I write articles, or if I'm making a presentation, including this presentation, it doesn't belong to me, Jennifer Woods. It belongs to the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists because they're my employer and I'm creating this work as part of my employment with them. The other way to use the work for hire doctrine is if you are contracting someone else to create a work for you. And all you need for that to happen is when you create your independent contractor agreement or other agreement that's in place, you include language saying that what the person is creating, if they're taking photographs for you, or they're writing an article for you, or creating music for you, that work is going to belong to you as the client under the work for hire doctrine. Now, that agreement has to be in writing and it has to have taken place before the work has been created. If that doesn't happen, you can still have the work assigned to you, but the work for hire is it's a more simple and straightforward way of owning the copyright from the very beginning. So I've already talked about this. The main thing with the work for hire, though, is it has to be a signed written agreement. Oftentimes people will say, well, we have an oral understanding that I'm going to own the work. If it's not in writing, the agreement really doesn't matter. under the law at least. It's really hard to prove something if you don't have something in writing. So how do people infringe on copyright? Well, infringement occurs when you're using either an entire piece of a work or even part of a work without permission. This could include translating something that you don't have permission to translate, or changing lyrics to a song. I've had people ask me if they can change a word to a song because they like the song, but there's just one word or two words that they don't like and they think they found a better word for. Well, that's actually infringing on someone's copyright because that's making a derivative. And unless you've asked the copyright holder, it's infringement. Infringement also occurs when you have a license to use something, but you go beyond the scope of the license. So let's say that you were given permission under, let's say, a stock photo agreement that you could make up to 5,000 copies using that image, and you decide that you want to make 10,000 copies. Well, you've now infringed on the copyright, and you can face the repercussions of that. Taping a performance without permission is infringement. Using images or videos on your website is also a form of infringement that I see many times, and this is something that gets our church into trouble often. So penalties. Under the US copyright law, penalties can include, first off, any actual damages that can be proved, but also their statutory damages. So those can be up to $150,000 per infringing the infringement. So let's say that you took 3 images that you weren't supposed to take and you post them, 15 times. That could be 45 times $150,000 that you could be facing in fines. Also, prison terms can apply if it's willful infringement. So once you've been notified that you're infringing on someone's copyright and you continue to use that material, you could face very steep monetary and also personal penalties as a result of that. So we all want to avoid infringement, right? Because first off, we don't want to face those penalties, but more importantly, we don't want to steal someone's work. And when we are infringing on someone's copyright, we should really think of it the same way as stealing. It is a form of theft. So in order to avoid infringement, first, you should determine whether the work you want to use is in fact copyright protected. Not everything that is creative that is out there is still copyright protected. There are many things that are in public domain. If the work that you're wanting to use is in public domain, and we'll talk about this in an upcoming slide, then you're free to use it. You're free to do any of those things that a copyright holder can do because there are no copyrights that attach to that material. If the work that you want to use is copyright protected, then the only way to absolutely avoid infringing on the work is to get permission from the copyright holder. And it should be in writing. So you don't need permission for original material. This is something that you've created yourself because you're the copyright holder, so you can do whatever you want to do with it. And material that's in the public domain, and works that are under a public copyright license. But that third one, I'll put a caveat and say that you don't need permission as long as you are following the terms of the license. So we'll talk about that in a second. Public domain. So copyright only lasts for a certain period of time. And after that period of time has lapsed, the work enters the public domain. Currently in the US, anything that has been created will last for the life of the author or the creator, plus 70 years after that. So again, if I had written a very famous book and I pass away this year in 2020, then copyright will last until 2090. So it lasts a long time, but it does not last forever. Prior to 1978, copyright law in the US, there were many very different iterations of it. And so depending on what year it was created and if it was registered or not, copyright may or may not apply. The only solid rule I can tell you for works in the US is that anything that is pre-1924 is now in the public domain. If there's any work that has been created since 1924, you are best to either look at the US copyright office, or seek an attorney, or do a lot of digging to ensure that the work that you want to use is in the public domain, because it's very likely that it's still copyright protected. And this concept of the life of the author plus 70 years, that is a concept that is beyond US law. Many countries, most countries, have that same concept in place. So another way that you can possibly use work is under fair use. I don't advise people to do this, but it's a doctrine under US which says that you can use limited portions of a work for certain purposes, but it doesn't avoid infringement or getting an infringement lawsuit. It just says that if you were to get sued, you can claim this, and the judge might say it's okay to use. It's very fact specific and very case by case. I put the slide in here because many times people say, oh, I'll just use it under fair use, it's fine to use, but it's not that simple. There are many factors that a court looks at, and it's much simpler, again, just to get permission. So the last thing I want to talk about regarding material that's free to use is if you find a public copyright license. Now, the most common one of these is the Creative Commons license, and you may have seen this on work before. Especially you'll find this if you look at Wikipedia or Wikimedia. Most of the material that they produce is under a Creative Commons license. And if you're looking to find material that's easy to use, I would look at Wikimedia. They have a lot of photographs and some videos, and it will tell you the terms of the license. Often it will say, you're free to use this material as long as you give attribution to the original creator, and then you're free to go. Sometimes it will say you're free to use the material as long as you don't make any derivatives, or you're free to use the material as long as it's not for commercial use. So again, look at the terms of the license, but you don't need to go and get specific permission from the author in order to use the work if you're using work that's under a Creative Commons license. So let's ask a question here. A church member notices that a local church has been streaming, because we're all streaming our services these days in these times of COVID-19. But the local church isn't just streaming the sermon portion of the service. They're streaming music. They're streaming everything. Is this a problem? Well, we're going to talk about music permission. And this is where churches, another area where churches tend to get in trouble. I would say there are two main areas. One is with music, and then the other one is with using images from online. So with music permissions, there's a number of different licenses that come into play. There's a master use license, and this covers the actual recorded version of the song. So let's say that you like a particular Whitley Phipps song, for example, one that he recorded on his album. Well, in order to use that recording of that song, you would need to get a master use license from his record label, or maybe from him, depending on who is administering rights for the master. If you want to perform music, then you'll need to get a performance rights license. This includes if you want to give a concert and you want to use music that is copyright protected, then there are organizations you can get a license from. In the US, there are a number of PROs, performance rights organizations. The three are BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC. And depending on where you're located, your country will also have performance rights organizations that give licenses to, so that you can perform music in front of the public. There's also mechanical licenses. This is needed if you want to reproduce a song. So let's say there's a song that you like and you want to make a recording of the song and you want to sell the song. If the song is still copyright protected, you need to reach out and get a mechanical license to do that. So you just can't sing any song you want and put it onto an album. The last license is a synchronization license. And this license is needed anytime that you want to put music with visual work. So let's say that you have a beautiful slide presentation and you want background music for your slide presentation. Well, you just can't take music off of your CD or buy a CD and take music off of that CD and put it with your visual work. You have to get a license in order to do that. And actually, I just got a letter this morning that got forwarded to me from one of our ministries, from somewhere within one of our denominational entities, who's gotten in trouble because they said, hey, you took our music and you put it to an advertisement that you placed on Facebook, and now you owe us, how much did they say? I think they said that they'd settle for $25,000. And if they go to court, they're going to ask for at least $150,000 for willful infringement. So this is something that people do get sued about when you take music without permission and you put it with a kind of visual work. So some of you may be saying, wait, we play music in church all of the time. Well, under US law at least, and many countries have an exception for this too, under US law, there is an exception that people can perform music during religious assembly or during religious service. So typically when we are singing congregational hymns or we have special music during church, we're okay because we're under this religious copyright exception. But this only applies to performances during religious service, and it only applies to live performances, like when the congregation is there physically in the building. It actually does not apply to when we're streaming, and it doesn't apply to projecting lyrics onto the screen for the congregation to sing, and it doesn't apply to any performances that are taking place outside of religious service. So if you're having, let's say, a church social and you have singing going on during that, then this exception wouldn't apply, and you'd need to have some kind of license or other permission mechanism in place. Otherwise, you risk copyright infringement. So something that churches rely on a lot, and something that I advise churches to look into at least, is getting a CCS and or CCLI license, and they serve some different functions. So your CCLI license, they have a worship cast and perform music license, and they have a copyright license as well. And the main thing that CCS does, I think, is the streaming piece. They have a huge library of music, and they allow you to stream music from service without infringing on someone's copyright. Now, CCLI, their license is unique. They also have a streaming license, which you could use if you look at both organizations and see which one has better pricing. They're both pretty reasonably priced. But the one thing that CCLI does have is it has the copyright license, which allows you to print and translate and project lyrics. So if your church has a projector and they're putting lyrics up typically for the congregation to sing, if you don't have a CCLI license, then you're probably infringing on copyright unless you're using public domain songs for all of your service. So again, this is something that you should definitely look into. We're talking about maybe a couple $100 a year per church, but it saves many, many, many thousands of dollars from a potential lawsuit. So here's another question. Let's say that your church wants to make an arrangement of the hymn Amazing Grace, and they want to record this and they want to put it as background music on their website or on some other site or maybe on a CD. Will they need a license to do this? And if so, what kind of license would they need? Well, the first step, remember, in checking to make sure that we're not infringing on someone's copyright is to see if the work that we want to use is copyright protected. And the song Amazing Grace is actually now in public domain. So we're free to do whatever you want to do with that song without having to get a license. Now, the scenario is slightly different if your church wants to use the song We Have This Hope instead. And I know many people think, well, the song is in the hymnal, and so we're free to use it. But that's not the case. Every song in the hymnal is not public domain. And in the hymnal, it will indicate whether the song is in fact public domain or is copyright protected. On the page with the song, there'll be information at the bottom that gives sometimes the copyright information. And you can also look at the date the song was created or the date the lyrics were created as a good indication on whether the song is public domain or is protected by copyright. And for the song We Have This Hope, it's actually copyright protected by Wayne Hooper, and it's being administered by La Sierra, and they do require licenses in order to use the song. And so I know we often think of We Have This Hope as this Adventist standard that we're all free to use, but the fact of the matter is, when we want to use the song, we have to get permission. And even us at the GC, when we want to use the song, when we were planning for GC session, which was going to be taking place this summer and has gotten pushed back, my office had to go and request permission in order to use the song, and not only to use the song in English, but we had to ask, and we want to use the following translations, and we want to put it up on projector, and we want to, stream it on Hope Channel. And I had to make sure that we had all the permissions that we needed so that we weren't infringing on the rights of Wayne Hooper's estate as the creator of the copyright. The other time that people sometimes get in trouble is that they think if they've bought the CD, then they have rights to use the music any way that they want. But when you buy a CD or when you download something off of iTunes, there are very specific terms of use, and that's for personal use or for your family to listen to, or your family and friends. It is not giving you a license to put it as background music or for public performance or for streaming. You have to get a specific license in order to do those things. So let's talk quickly about copyright and social media. And what I will say here is that it's important to make sure that you read the terms of use and terms and conditions of whatever social media platform you are posting things to. You don't want to post or repost copyrighted material because that is infringement. And while some platforms such as YouTube have come up with a way to monetize, and they have their own system of kind of dealing with copyright infringement in some cases, it doesn't preclude the copyright holder from also reaching out to you. So with YouTube, what they sometimes do is that if the copyright owner wants to, they can monetize, right, by placing ads on your page, and then they'll make money off of the ads if you use their copyrighted material. And that's one way that they handle copyright infringement. But you might also get a notice, and you can have a strike against you. And if you get a certain number of strikes on YouTube, they can shut down your channel, and they can stop people from looking at anything that you post. They can stop you from posting. And that becomes very problematic, especially when our main means of reaching out to the congregation and to doing outreach is now on social media platforms. So you want to make sure that you're reading the terms and conditions and that you're using material that you have permission to. And you also want to make sure you know that when you post something, that you're also giving up some of your ownership rights. So let's say that you're posting a sermon or a video that you've created, you're giving YouTube or these other platforms the right to repost, and you're giving them sub-license rights. And that may be fine. Maybe you want, you don't mind them reusing your material, but just know that you are giving up some of those rights when you click OK on the terms and conditions. So here are just some last thoughts. Just because something is available on the internet, it does not mean it's public domain. And let me see if I gave okay, so let me give this example. This happens multiple times a year. I'll get a letter, I'll get an email from either a conference or a union, or sometimes a department within the GC itself. And they're saying, hey, we got this letter saying that we owe X thousands of dollars, like the letter that I got this morning. And it will say, you took an image that I'm the copyright holder to, and you took it without permission, you don't have a license, now you owe X amount of money. And when I do some digging and I say, hey, where did you get this image from? They'll say, oh, I just found it on Google and it looked like it was free to use. I couldn't find any copyright holder information, so I put it into my PowerPoint. And it's usually PowerPoints that this goes into. We'll go into a PowerPoint presentation, and then it gets posted on the website, and then people forget about it. But there are now these searching capabilities that organizations have, and they can find their copyrighted material. So sometimes it will be material that's been posted 5-10 years ago, and they say you owe us X thousands of dollars because this has been posted for so long. So if you don't know what you have on your websites, if you don't know the source of all of your images or photographs, I really encourage you to take off any images that you don't know the source to. The last one before the one this morning that I received, the last contact I had on this was from a local church who had taken an image and put it as one of the images on their website. And unbeknownst to them, the image that they took was from a rather famous photographer. And they ended up having to pay a couple of $1,000s. And that doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when you're talking about a local church or even at the conference level, in the times that we're in right now, that's tithe payer money that could be used for ministry, and instead we're using it to settle or avoid litigation from occurring. So that's my plug about not using images from Google. Just because you find it on Google or Yahoo or any of those search engines, it does not mean that it's free to use. Also, just because you don't see that C symbol, it does not mean that it's not protected by copyright. As I said earlier, that's no longer necessary in order to have a valid copyright. If you get permission for one use, it doesn't give you permission for all uses. And one example of this is just because one ministry has an image, it doesn't mean you can take that image and use it for your own ministry. So if you see that a church is using an image or a song, it doesn't mean that you now have a license to use it as well. You don't know the terms of that organization's license. And what often happens is people will say, oh, I found this article or I found this image off of Adventist Review or off of Hope Channel or off of Ministry Magazine. But they may have a single one-time use license. And so the best thing to do is if you find an image or a song or some other kind of creative content from a sister ministry, ask them if you can reuse that. And if you can't, they'll let you know the terms of their license or who you can reach out to. But that's the best way if you find content that you want to use from another ministry. Again, as I stated before, just owning a book or a painting or a CD does not give you all the rights of a copyright holder. Basically, when you own the tangible product, it's for your own single personal use. And the last thing I can advise on is if you have any questions, please talk to your legal counsel, or you can reach out to me. I've listed some resources here. The North American Division has a big data and social media website. It's www.sdadata.org. They have some great resources there. Also, I've posted the link to CCLI and CCS. And I think a couple of presentations ago, someone was talking about the new Adventist identity and the creation grid, but I posted that here as well because it kind of deals with some copyright and trademark issues. But this last slide has my contact information. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I tried to make this presentation as quick as possible. So now I'm not sure how we're doing questions, but I'll leave the remainder of the time for questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you so much for that that presentation. That was really insightful, and I learned a lot of things that I had no idea about, and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching as well also have a lot of questions. We have some questions in the chat right now, Mrs. Woods, and I'd like to read those off, one of them off, and then you just answer. So okay. I've got one. What is the difference between trademark and copyright? I think they're referring to the symbols.
Yes, and typically I put trademark into my presentation, but that adds just another like 10 minutes. So a trademark is it can be a word or a phrase or a symbol like our Adventist flame symbol, and it's used to identify the source of goods, right? So goods or services. So for us, when you hear the name Adventist or you see that flame logo, you know that the source of the services, of the ministerial services that are being provided are from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So the flame symbol and the name Adventist are trademarks. Copyright would be applying to things like books that are produced by Review and Herald or Pacific Press, or books or materials that are coming out of the General Conference. We have a number of trademarks. The biggest ones that I work on protecting are the name Seventh-day Adventist, the name Adventist, and again, our flame logo. But we have, I think, about 100, maybe over 100 trademarks that we actively monitor that are owned by the General Conference Corporation.
Okay, thank you so much. We have another question here. The question is, can the copyright be transferred to family members before the creator of the right passes?
Yes, so you can assign a copyright at any time. It's the same as assigning or transferring real property. What you would need is just a written document that says, I, such and such, am the owner of the following work that I created, and I'm assigning it to such and such. So it's just it can be a very simple legal document, but you can do that before the creator and the work dies. Okay.
Another question, we have a lot. When persons use something outside of the US, would the law be applicable outside of the US jurisdiction as well?
So US law, if the work is created in the US, then US law might apply, but also whatever country that you're violating the copyright within could also, their law could apply. And like I said, so there's this thing called the Berne Convention, and most countries, the vast majority of countries are members of that. So when you're violating copyright in one country, you can be sued in either the country that you're in or in the country of origin. So you could face multiple different kinds of lawsuits there.
So you're saying that you could be sued basically anywhere, even if the content was created in the US or elsewhere?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a couple countries where they don't apply these, like the Berne principles or the Berne Convention principles. And in those countries, you know, we're kind of out of luck because they're not going to honor, you know, US law or the general copyright principles. But outside of those very few countries, you can face infringement lawsuits.
Okay. We have another question here. How do we find out if an image on Google is copyrighted?
So it's very hard to find out because oftentimes there's no information to indicate whether the image is copyrighted or even who created the image or, you know, what year it was created in. So I just advise don't take images off of Google. Just don't do it. Unless you can find the source of the image, it's best just not to use it. The safest thing to do is to go, you know, either take your own images or get your own images made, or use a stock photo company organization like Shutterstock or iStock Photo or some Getty Images, or use, you know, Wikimedia or some other place that has a large library of Creative Commons photos. But just finding something off of Google, which many people do all of the time, it really sets yourself up, and more importantly, it sets the conference up as the legal body that will probably get sued. It sets you up for, you know, litigation and having to pay large fines.
Okay. There is this comment, a question as well. The church as a corporate body from the General Conference, I'm trying to find, that prints the hymnals for sale to the different regions. Do they have an overarching protection for various regions? If so, what are the limitations, if any?
So when we published the hymnal, it's for congregational singing. The rights that we had even as as creating it and Review and Herald as publisher was that they have rights to allow congregational singing. We didn't have the rights to project those lyrics. We don't have the rights to record the music. Those rights still belong to the copyright holder for those songs that are copyright protected. So we can only pass on rights to, you know, the congregation's rights that we actually had, and that is just for congregational singing.
Okay. Another question coming from Master Nelson. What if one cites the source of the image on the PowerPoint slide?
So that just means that you know that you've taken someone else's image and you are basically willfully violating copyright at that point. Giving credit without getting permission is not enough. It shows that you knew that you should have probably gotten credit and you didn't do it.
Okay.
Okay, I need to ask a question. Jennifer, thanks again for being here with us. Usually on social media now, there's a disclaimer that people will put on the social media that the songs is only for entertainment. Is that allowed on our churches when we have in a service? We will put a disclaimer, this is not only for entertainment and not for sale or those kinds of stuff. Is that allowed?
I mean, that's allowed. You're kind of saying the limitations of how you want your material to be used. But the bigger question is, do you have the underlying permissions to use that music to begin with, right? So.
And what's about during our online services where we just get a song from wherever and we just play it? Is that a no-no?
So this is where you need to have that streaming license in place, because otherwise you're infringing. We can't rely on the church exception because it only applies to live in-person performances, not to streaming.
We have a lot of questions, but we're gonna deal with this one here. A lot of the software has clip art included in the packages, example, Photoshop, PowerPoint, Word, and other Microsoft software. How does this relate to copyright?
Yeah, so if it's included in the software, the main thing is read the terms and conditions. It will say how it can be used and how it can be reused. It's probably fine for presentations. It's probably not fine for taking it and then putting it onto some other platform that's not like Microsoft. If let's say it's Microsoft, clip art, and you take it and you use it in something else completely unrelated, it's probably in the terms and conditions that you're not allowed to do that. But if you're using it as it's supposed to be used, then you'll be fine.
Okay. Wow. Okay. What are the legal ways to find or use images? Is a subscription to Shutterstock enough?
So it depends on what kind of use you're planning on, how you're planning on using it. Shutterstock may be enough. If, again, if all you need are a couple images from time to time for your online bulletin and for presentations and for your website, then maybe a subscription to Shutterstock will meet your needs. And there may be some other, I know CCLI, I think CCS, they have some like video licenses as well. Maybe that will meet your needs. It may be that you don't need a whole subscription, you just need, a one-off, a couple images here you pay for, a couple images there you pay for. So it's really dependent on what you're looking for.
Okay. We've got a question here, and it's regarding our conference, and I think I'll ask Pastor Philber to join me here if we could be able to provide a response, and also your comments as well, Mrs. Woods. Okay. The question is, does the conference, either NCC, have membership to BMI, CSAC, or ASCAP that the local churches can use?
I don't know. Lots of people are having problems in hearing me, so just... Okay, so lots of people having problems in hearing me, so I was trying to get a way to fix it. Okay, we do have a CCL license. We are a region, and so lots of the congregations can have a streaming license and a copyright license under the North Caribbean Conference that gives them the ability to do what you're doing and to be a safe location for their streaming opportunities. Okay?
But I'd be...
They have to purchase
right, right. I think they'd have to purchase that license.
It's not going to be as expensive, but we went ahead and took out a license under the ambit of the North Caribbean Conference, and the local congregations now can just purchase a license under us that gives them the ability and the opportunity to stream and to broadcast their services.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to take this one last question. What about person downloading some, well, that's okay. That one is, what about using Easy Worship to project the lyrics of a song? Is that still not covered in a copyright license?
So Easy Worship is a tool in an organization, right? That you would take the song from. And again, what I would say there is look at the terms and conditions of use, because if that's covered under their license that they're granting you, then you're fine. But this is where I say that, the important thing is if you have a license, you need to look at the terms of the license and make sure that you're working within the terms of that license. So easy use may be a way that you're able to do that, but if they don't give you those rights, if it's just for personal use, then it won't cover what you're trying to do for the congregation.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Woods. I definitely was blessed. I'm sure that a lot of people as well were blessed to understand the legal parameters as we seek to explore the digital space so that we don't get into any legal infringements and any problems as we go out there sharing the good news of the gospel. I'd like to thank you for what you do. It seems to be an awful load, like a lot of work because, dealing with all the legal parameters of, copyright infringement and those other things can seem daunting at times. Even when you started to present it, it seemed daunting to me. And so I want to thank you for what you do. And I pray that God continues to bless you. And thank you for just your time and your insight in this regard.
Thank you. I just want to say a couple of things. First off, I know it was a lot of material that we tried to put into a very short time. And there is a resource, again, on the Big Data website and on Adventist Learning Community. I have a longer presentation that I want to just point out as a resource. And also, I know it's very convoluted, especially when we get to music. And I was just going to say that As an example, at the GC, when we were planning for the general conference session, we were clearing music a year in advance because it was so confusing. So, you know, I know it's a lot, but copyright is just an area that gets our church into trouble very often. And thank you again for the opportunity to present. And my email has been shared, so please feel free to reach out to me as needed. Thank you all.
That's it. Thank you so much.
All right, Jennifer, I want to say thanks on behalf of the North Caribbean Conference for your excellent presentation. Lots of people did ask for the presentation, but as you indicated on the Big Data website, we should have a longer copy of your presentation. Am I correct?
You are, and I'll email you a copy of the presentation to share.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll be here waiting to have it picked up. And to all of our people, the CCLI license, we want to remind you of the necessity. You can go in under the North Caribbean Conference and pick up your license. And here's the reason why we had this presentation, because lots of congregations after their Sabbath services do get the red flag from social media. I see lots of them from Facebook and YouTube. And even when we have our conference programs, we recognize that lots of times we have to be flagged and we have to be protesting in an effort to clear some of the flag that we were receiving on social media. So we want directors, church pastors, we want you to be aware that before you use your songs, you need to get clearance or pick up a broadcast license. And we're going to tell you how you can get it under the North Caribbean Conference. You can go in there and pick up your license. We've already paid all of the fees, and all you need to do is to take up the license underneath the North Caribbean Conference, which is going to work at a little cheaper for you, but it is important for you to do that, or else we're going to get your social media closed down. And here's my point now. Whenever we're having conference programs, and your music comes to us that is not copyrighted, we're not going to broadcast, because we have to be authentic in what we're doing. And the presentation is intended to inform directors as to how we should operate as a church moving forward. We've got to be authentic in what we're doing. So I want to thank us so much for doing that. Even the images that we pick up and we put on our broadcast, the producer here at the North Caribbean Conference is really authentic. Whenever we are sharing stuff here, we purchase our images. We purchase what we put outside there because we want to be sure that whenever it comes from the organization here, it is always authentic. And we are recommended for you to do the same. Even the graphics that you share online, we want you to purchase them. Too many times we find leaders seeking to have the cheaper way forward, but the cheaper way out is not necessarily the best way. And as a church, and here, I know we have some pastors online, and I want to be very transparent. The time has arrived when church departments and churches should budget for the communication department to be sure that what we are putting outside there represents the organization and what its principles and policies are. Too often we are under budgeted, and so directors have to be scrunting or bargaining and purchasing from people or getting from friends. That's not what we desire. COVID-19 speaks about managing communication, and we want to be sure that as directors, we are authentic in what we are doing. If you agree with me, I want you to type amen in the chat. If you agree with me, type amen in the chat. That's so authentic. I want to thank you for that. We want you, oh my goodness me, the chat is just running across. It's important, folk. It is important. And what we're coming back to Nigel. It's important. I see so many people are typing amen, and that's key. That is key to the authenticity of the church. We represent, Nigel said it earlier, we represent a vast organization, and we must not seek to shortcut the organization by the cheap way in which we think we want to do things. This is what the church stands for. And again, I am thankful to to my producer here at the office. He's always bent on being authentic, so that when the church puts something outside there, it can stand the test of time. And that's what we want you to do in COVID-19 times as comm directors. So now coming on, if you're planning for your Sabbath worship service, you need to be sure that your music passed the test, or before this week is over, as early as tomorrow morning, you need to get in contact with the NCC office and purchase a license, a streaming license and a broadcast license underneath the North Caribbean Conference that gives you clearance. And even when you purchase a license, before you go online to broadcast your service, you need to be sure that the songs that's in your package is covered under the broadcast license. That is key for authenticity and to be sure that we are doing what we are doing the right way. This is food for thought. Let me thank all those who are online. I see people from St. Lucia. I see people from all the islands of the conference. This is, I want to thank you for coming in, and it is important. So we're going back now to Nigel. Is Nigel online with us there now? Nigel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. I met Nigel in Miami at one of our IAD conference meeting, and he's a brilliant gentleman who has come from the corporate world and brought his expertise into the church. And we want to thank him. Media relations, he spoke of, in having to the church to have a better media relation. Now, and one of the reasons we had him on before he comes on with the crisis communication, which is going to be our final presentation today, one of the reasons we brought him on is because lots of times the church, things are happening in the church and we keep it to ourselves. It is important for us to share what we have with the world, but in sharing what we have, we need to build media relations with those on the outside. He said earlier on, the media don't want our food, they want our stories. Is that correct, Nigel?
Yes.
The media don't want our food, they want our stories. And he did indicate some of the stories that he's recommended can be shared with the media on the outside. So how do we share the stories, Nigel? Are we just going to send them an email? Are we going to just put it outside there and automatically think they're going to pick it up? How do we share the stories?
Okay, the stories are shared based on activities that the church would have planned and execute. Now, they can invite the media to cover the event, but in the event, coverage is not provided, and I prefer sometime when the media doesn't come, but I send the story out to them. You basically send it to the various editors. If you're sending something to the electronic media, you would want to send a video with it so that they can show it on their electronic platform. And in terms of the print, you would want to send photos, but find out whether or not whoever is on duty that day, because you want to send the story directly to the person responsible. So you have different editors that are on for different days. You don't want to be sending the story that you have to an editor who is on Monday and you sending it to that editor on Sunday. You call the media house first, find out who is on duty, so you know you send the story to them. After you would have sent it, you will follow up with a call to find out if they have received it, because you know a lot of times you send email, and if the person doesn't go in the email box, they'll not retrieve it. So it is best when you send it out, find out who is on duty to send it to. After you have sent it to the person, do a follow-up to find out if they have actually received it. I saw a question in the chat. I think someone was saying that they don't agree with that the media only carry bad news. I'm not sure if I said exactly that, but I'm telling you that's their inclination, because bad news to media a lot of times basically is good news. So a lot of the front page news that you will see, it has to do with whether it's a politician and what he has not done or the bad thing. It has to do with crime, things like that. I am basically relating to my media landscape here, which is not necessarily good to generalize, but generally, you would not see good church news on a front page unless it has the features or the characteristic of news, which is conflicting. You know, you see something conflicting there. My mentor some years ago, when he spoke with me one of the times, he said to me, you know, to get your story printed, if it has these 3 ingredients, it would be good. So he says, these 3 things will help for your story to be published. He said, trauma, drama, or humor. Trauma, drama, or humor. Once it has those criteria in the story, more than likely the media house will carry it. So I'm not saying that all they will do is publish bad news about the church. I am just saying the church, they will easier carry the bad news for the church than the good one. So, for example, if you were not sending out any good news, and even though there's a good news, if there's a bad news about your president being charged for a particular crime, whether it be fraud, whether it be rape, anything like that, the media will certainly carry it. That's what I really meant. So I hope I provided some clarity there. I saw where someone says, and rightly so, if it bleeds, then it leads. Yes, I believe that is a good, that person may have done some journalism or hear of it. So I see here, how do you navigate the difficult topics of religious liberty with the media, especially with the got you type media houses? Yes, I believe in general, they want to, because you're religious people and people of righteousness, they at times seek to find ways to make you don't look so righteous. I'm telling you, it happens. It happens in Jamaica. We have a real wide media landscape here of like 30 radio stations and 3 main newspaper and a whole lot of television and cable. And when you do interviews there, they will basically want to carry you down a particular road to come back and say, yeah, but you said that. And as the person said, you know, got you. I got you there. So that is one of the reasons why we have to be very careful and choose the right person who would interface with the media and speak with them in terms of religious liberty. As a religious liberty person, I have to navigate that stream with them. We have the UN Declaration for the Right of Individual we can use. Most countries, I'm sure that has free democracy, they have in their constitution the right to freedom of religion. And so you can point the media houses to the Constitution, because so many times they overlook it. You can point them to it in getting that message out that our religious right is trampled on or infringed wherever and whenever it is infringed upon.
There is someone has a hand up. We're going to take a final question before we move on. Brother Philman Dupuy.
My question is, in this age of WhatsApp and rapid news, what is the responsibility of the church member in terms of who reports the news? Because if it's an event, it's okay. If it's a health event, the health director might report the news. But as you rightly said, if it's a salacious story, and everybody wants to be the one to report the news, how do we navigate that?
One of the things, very good question. Can you pronounce your last name?
Dupuy.
So it's nice. Okay. All right. One of the things we're working on as a church is really on that social media policy, which for the most part maybe can only cover the workers of the church, because at times workers themselves put the church in a very bad light. I don't know if you have that problem where you are, but we have it here, where persons, we have pastors that are dismissed, and the next thing they want to do is to go in the paper and publish something on the church. They want to take the church to court. They put all sorts of things on the social media platform. Well, you know, social media is just free to everyone. The regulation covering that is really not there. Internet and people just speak. So one of the things that I think we ought to do as a church organization is arrange for our internal social media policy, which, as I said, would hardly be able to cover members who wants to go out there, whether on WhatsApp, Facebook, or Instagram, with any story, but particularly the worker. So, because you would have control over the worker, where you can basically, where you hire or fire or impose some sanction, some punishment if they go outside the guideline. But it is very difficult, very, very difficult to be controlling the social media landscape where persons want to put things out. I give you an excellent example. Andrews Hospital here that we operate, with regards to COVID, there was a lady who came there, and the private hospitals are told not to admit any COVID case, but to pass them on to the designated public hospitals. So a lady came, she came in because she had paid Andrews Hospital for her delivery of her baby. But she came in and showed some serious signs of COVID-19. Now, her doctor was there at Andrews with her, because it is the doctor now that would have to come to Andrews. It's not an Andrews Hospital doctor that would have to administer to her and deliver the baby. It so turned out her doctor was there. She saw signs of COVID. He agreed with Andrews to have her transferred to a public hospital. They tried 3 public hospitals. They all declined to accept or receive her. Andrews, I believe, kept her overnight. The following day, one of the hospitals accepted her. When they accepted her, she delivered the baby. And then, because of those symptoms, whatever, she was transferred to another hospital. When she reached that hospital, she died. Now, social media took on the whole thing. Andrews was in a terrible light. But what was extremely significant, my brothers and sisters, is that within chat groups set up by Adventist Church in our various regions, our members were just blasting Andrews, accusing Andrews, and everything like that. The things they say, you could not believe they were Seventh-day Adventist. You would expect it from the general public, not from our members. And so it's really difficult. And Ellen White has said we have far more to fear from within than without. Because indeed, even the following day, a doctor, a non-Adventist. In fact, this doctor says he's an atheist. And he put something out in the paper defending Andrews. Yet, members were condemning Andrews. So these kind of things are difficult to navigate because it's all a part of public relation, crisis communication, etc. Of course, Andrews had remained numb, mum, whatever, for the entire weekend, and it wasn't until the Sunday evening that something came out from them. While nothing came out from them, all the news, the bad news was there on social media, and they didn't say anything. I will say that in the presentation on crisis communication and how it is important for us to move timely in our response. But thanks for the question.
I want to take one more question, Nigel, before you go, because there are lots of them coming on and time is against us. But is there a checklist for media relations that we should follow? Is there a checklist? And do you have a copy of what media relations should be a document in that right?
We haven't put together anything like that. The presentation, if you wish, I can send it, but it's basically critical areas that are necessary to relate to the public, the media with. In terms of steps, right? It is important to build the relationship. The first step starts from the first story that you would send to them. That's how you start making. It's like when you go to buy something at a shop. It's your first interaction with the cashier. If you go to an organization, your first interaction with the front desk person. You have to ensure that what you do with the media is not a transactional relationship, but you're building a long-term relationship with them. So it's not like when you go to a store and buy a bottle of drink and the exchange is that you give the cashier the money, she gives you your goods, that's transaction, it's done. What you do is when you start sending your story, you start to build relationships. So for instance, you might call the media to say, you have a story, who is the right person to talk to? When they tell you, and they might transfer you to the person. If they do, when you speak to that person, you ask for their extension or contact and things like that. When you send the article in, you will call and follow up to find out if they get it. Then the next story comes along and you build it from there. I make it a point of my duty that if, because we have Press Association Awards each year, if there are any one of the media personnel that I relate to that got an award, I would call them and congratulate them, send them an email, etc. I've had in the past where an editor, his wife had baby, yes, at Andrews. I called the CEO and I said, you know, visit him, his wife, and pray with them. And he would have done that. I from my end, would send them like a basket of fruits and say congratulations from the church. And I remember that particular occasion when it happened, he got the visit from the CEO, prayed with the family, we sent the basket. But at the end, when they were departing, that editor, their health card had maxed out. Money finished on it. And what the CEO did was to just say, Jesus paid it all. Didn't charge anymore. No, you see, these things make a long and lasting memory in the minds of them. And so it makes it easier that when you get send your next story, trust me, for some reason, they wouldn't really want to push it aside because of how you had related to them. We have had one where, I mean, was the managing editor, and her father died, and he was a Seventh-day Adventist, and we were able to minister to her. She's not an Adventist, but we were able to minister to her. My president even did the funeral, and where they had shortcomings, we filled the gap as a church. And she wrote a letter to my president after to say, look, anything you want to be done, I'll do it in short notice. So there are various ways to build relationship, various steps. But as I said, it starts with the first story that you would send to them.
Right. Thank you so much, Nigel. We have our final presentation by Nigel. As you heard, he's the guru. He's a senior servant here in our presenters today, and I want to thank him immensely. We sat together during one of our workshops, and he shared, and I think he has a wealth of information. Not only is he sharing from his knowledge, but he's sharing from his experience. And I'm sure that that experience with media relations, it's intended to help us as directors, coordinators in our various islands. Nigel, we have 10 islands in the North Caribbean Conference, and on every island we have coordinators. We have coordinating councils that seek to spearhead and manage the work.
Name the 10.
Name the islands?
Yes, I'm really interested.
We have St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, Tortola, Virgin Gorda, Antigua. We have Sabre, St. Martin, Anguilla, and St. Eustatius. Okay. So we operate in all these islands around the conference. And so in these locations, we do have coordinating councils. And what you've seen online, we have about 71 persons now. A few people signed up a little. But these individuals come from all the islands. We don't have the luxury of people driving to the office here as you have in Jamaica. And that's the difference with the North Caribbean Conference. So all of these individuals now have we have to synergize and pull all the resources from all the islands to bring out what is best. And so I'm really appreciative of all of our directors who are online with this program today. It's really amazing at the commitment. And on behalf of the administration of the conference and all the union, I want to thank them immensely for their service. And so what we want is that in the locale, wherever they are going to build this relationship. Lots of the stories that we print, we want them to filter through the local church, through the local print media, so that people get to know what the church is about, what we are doing. And the local communication directors in your local churches, if you haven't held programs, whatever you haven't, seek to allow it to be part of the news outside it, so that the church is known in the community wherever you are. I think that's an important presentation, and I want to thank you so much for that, Nigel.
Yes, and I want to thank you too. And I heard you mention about meeting me at IAD, but remember it was, I think 3 years ago at that SAC meeting in Washington at the headquarters, I believe, of the North American division. Yes, you remember?
That's correct. That's correct.
And let me tell you, everyone, he asked me all the questions, far more than what is posted right here on the chat. And I told him everything, and how to navigate, how to do things. In fact, we had a one-on-one seminar right through that time. Because let me tell you, in all of this, I really want to empower people. I want people to relate to me, that it can only redound for the better of the Adventist church. And my passion is for us to just have this good image in the public space, and for us to owe it to the church. I know it's God's church. It is his bride. Brides are always in white. But yes, that dress now is spotty because of sin. and where we are as a church. But one day God is going to come for the bride, and she's going to in that spotless white dress. In the meantime, I've always said, let us try to keep that dress clean. Yes, various forms of dirt will come on it, but let's be part of that army of dry cleaners for God's church. That's the communicators. Let's help to remove some of these stains, some of these spots, these damages that might come. Some we might come because of members bringing it on the church, some because of our own doing. But overall, all of that will fall under the caption of sin. We are sinful and we live in a sinful world. And until sin comes to an end, we have to do something to help, to do our part as communicators so that God's church can be as spot-free as possible as we prepare for his soon coming. So my next presentation is on
crisis communication.
On crisis.
Final presentation for today. So we want to ask you to stay with us and let's go ahead. Thank you so much, Nigel. You can proceed.
Yes, I'm proceeding, but when I zoom in here, I'm not seeing the present. Okay, let me find it here. Managing the crisis. Are you seeing it?
I'm seeing your
desktop.
The desktop.
Okay, but I click in it.
Try again, please. Double click.
Okay, let me take this back off. Let me double click again. Managing the crisis. You're seeing it now? Still not?
Okay, so if you put your cursor, okay,
Yeah.
try it now.
You're seeing it now?
No, it's not on there. I'm just seeing.
It says here I'm sharing.
Okay, so stop sharing and open it up. Stop sharing and open it up, and then we'll see what happens. Right.
Okay. There you go. You must be seeing it now. Are you seeing it?
Yes, we are seeing it now.
Okay. Wonderful. Does it need to be larger? No. You're seeing it large enough?
It is. It is.
Thanks. Okay. All right. So in keeping with copyright, I added some slides into this, and this was Janet Monan Green. She did a presentation last week, but this was before she did that we had collaborated. So you would see then, and I got permission from her. So when you do it this way, you put the first person who created the slide name first. So I'm just giving you a little copyright thing here, right? So that's why you see Janet Monan Green, then Nigel Cook. Oh, Lord. All right. Crisis communication. I decided to start with this before I say what is a crisis. Because public relations is what is going to get you through a crisis. And that is why I did the media relation first before I did this one, because you have to build that relationship so that it will be easier for you to navigate through the crisis with the communication. So It says public relation is the management function that establishes and maintains mutual beneficial relationship between an organization and the publics on whom its success or failure depends. So I will easily say upfront, public relations is so important. It can make you and it can break you as an organization. So if it is good, yes, it will make you, but you have also bad public relations that have caused in the past companies to even go bankrupt, be sued, and closed down. So what is a crisis? Changes, crisis, and confrontation affect the church like any organization. But a crisis is a decisive moment, a time of danger or great difficulty that any individual, church, government, anyone faces. And this is taken from the Concise Oxford Dictionary. So there are three types of crisis. You have immediate crisis, emerging crisis, and you have sustained crisis. Sorry. The immediate one is most dreaded. It happens without warning. COVID-19 is the easiest example. Earthquakes can happen. If you drill down more into an individual or church, fire, burglary, some personnel being charged for a crime. It happens without warning a whole lot of times. Then you have the emerging. So it takes time to develop. It allows more time for research, planning, corrective action necessary before it becomes critical. So for example, there was a situation and it was reported where a pastor, they had said buggered a young boy, abused him sexually. And it was reported to our child development agency and the police. But we knew, but it didn't become public until the media got it. And so we had the luxury of planning, building up to see how are we going to respond. But then it then became the real crisis. It was before, but the real crisis was when the editor of the newspaper called me and asked me if we're aware of it. Because for the most part, they call me the communication director for the church. Because yes, years of relating with them, as I said, from 98, that's what, 22 years, something like that, yeah. And so they called to say if I'm aware of it. Yes, we're aware. And then he said, okay, we'll send you some questions regarding it. So we got time to answer appropriately, etc. Then you have sustained crisis, you know, these can be like nightmare. They don't go away. The Andrews thing is still with us because even when the lady was buried, Andrew's name came up. Her mother the other day said she wants justice. It came up Friday in the paper. It came that they said the autopsy report is now ready for public scrutiny. Yes, they have to mention again Andrew. So it is one that is going to be sustained. And of course, in the past, the Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton thing and Monica Lewinsky, those are examples. Each election, they keep coming up and mentions made of it. COVID, listen, for years to come, will be a sustained crisis that will keep coming up. And as I've always said to friends, 5 years from now, people will still be blaming COVID for something that had happened, that had gone wrong. Effective public relations prepares for and anticipates the worst. So anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So crisis management is the process by which an organization deals with a major event that threatens to harm the organization its stakeholders or the general public. Yes, it can harm the organization. It can also be harmful to stakeholders, and it can also be harmful to the general public, depending on what it is. The oil spill some years ago, you know, it's generally harmful to the environment and to the public. So it's not only that the crisis can be, the crisis within your organization can affect the public at large. Now, this is so key. It is, you're talking about steps. You're talking about what you should not forget in a crisis. These 3 keys are important. Let me repeat, these are 3 critical keys. My president, every time we have been through a crisis, he would say these 3 things. Respond quickly, respond fully as possible, and respond truthfully. Now, I could just relate to them one by one, and we're through with the presentation. So here goes. It is very important to respond quickly. If you don't respond quickly, it can cost the organization money, it can cause lawsuit, it can cause damage to the image of the church, a whole lot of things. In the day and year and currently with social media, if you delay, social media will rip you to pieces if you don't respond quickly to a crisis. I just gave you the example of Andrews Hospital. I don't think we have finished paid for it. No, we are going to be paying for that for years to come. I say we because it's a part of the church and we operate it. But not for 1 minute should anyone on this presentation believe that Nigel Cook presenting this presentation, saying that we should respond quickly, believe that I was responsible for that crisis or oversee that crisis communication. They have their own PR person, they have their CEO, and they dealt with it. In the past, I've dealt with crisis for Andrews. They decided to take it on themselves. I got a lot of calls at the time saying why I don't take it over, manage it, but I can't. If Andrews, who would have had their own CEO, independent of the church, decides to do it, and when they decided to do it, I mean, you know, they didn't contact me, anything. So please don't say, how are you saying this when you just told us of a situation? So they had their own team and they did their own thing. You must respond quickly because it is important. It's an imperative. Social media will just take whatever they have and do whatever they want to do with you while you vacillate, while you delay, while you remain silent. And sometimes they believe, depending on this crisis, silent means consent. So if the church is being hauled through the media about some money that was stolen or fraud or anything, if you're not saying anything, they'll believe it. If it's not so, you need to say it's not so. Respond fully and in bracket as is possible, because sometimes you can't give full details of what has happened. But you can respond quickly by giving a partial update and say to them, as soon as more information is available, we will report it. That in itself is called, you can give them, you know, you have in commerce standard order, right? That is called what it is called sometimes a standing statement. You said, it's like you would say in our vernacular, hold this until I get back to you. So you need to respond in the fullest possible way. So you have what is called, as I just mentioned, standing statement or holding statement. So you give them that to hold in the meantime. Now this one is, number 3 is crucial. You have to respond truthfully. If the media and the public find that you told a lie, that's devastating. And I don't need to explain that, because it is going to be worse, because it's a church. We are the church, so we ought to be truthful people, religious people, godly people, righteous people. And so remember these 3 whenever you face any crisis. Respond quickly. Respond as fully as you can, and respond truthfully. These 3 steps will help you to manage your crisis. So, common mistake in handling crisis: people hesitate. Hesitation leads to a perception of confusion, that you're cool and callous, you're incompetent, you're trying to cover up. That's what hesitation does. Obfuscation. So you're suggesting your dishonesty, sometimes insensitivity, with Andrew saying, I said to my president, who is the chairman for the board, look, tell them that at least put a video out on social media, just give some empathy. Say you're sorry for what has happened, you know, the death of the lady. Empathize with the family, you know, and do something. Nothing was done. So you can't be I mean, someone died. You can't be seen as insensitive to the situation. Retaliation